All right. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Kyle. I'll be moderating today. We're coming up on the halfway point in our following through series. Today's webinar is managing multiple deliveries. And this could mean partial deliveries or even deliveries by a stage in a project. Today's presenter is Scott Rockins. I'm sure he's got a couple more words to say about managing multiple deliveries. Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks, Kyle. We are today going to talk about what happens when part of your order is delivered and part remains on order or staged for delivery, and different tools in System 5 that can help you manage that. As Kyle mentioned, this is kind of near the middle of our webinar workshop series on following through. And today we're going to talk about these split orders that are partially delivered and how to manage that. Then next week, we're going to have a morning workshop about more on this topic. Frankly, there'll be more detail than we can fit in the webinar, will also be in the workshop, as well as talking about things like returns, warranties, and tracking technician time when you're installing products at customers' homes or businesses. So we'll talk a little bit more about what's in the workshop near the end here. Let's get started. Essentially, this presentation is going to deal with these three tools in System 5. Now, because it's a short webinar, I'm going to go through each of these tools quite quickly. I won't go through the setup on how to do each of these things, but don't worry, the setup instructions are readily available through your Learning Academy or other resources. We'll show you how to find those near the end. And again, we'll be doing more detail on these in the workshop. So I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. These are three tools to deal with the situation where the customer has placed a bunch of orders for product. Maybe some of it you have in stock right away, and some you need to order, or some of it they need right now, and some they want at a certain date later. So you've got the situation where part of your order is delivered and part is not. We're going to start with block and move. So we're going to start ourselves up. A new sale. We'll start as a work order, and I'm going to apologize in advance. I got a new laptop, and I've been setting up my new demo for Windward. And I think I've got all the settings I need for today, but I might bump into one or two that aren't quite what we need. So if I have to backtrack a little bit, I apologize. So I've got some appliances set up that I'm going to use for today's demonstration. And so we're going to say this customer buys 2 or 3, let's call it 4 different appliances. And for today's demonstration, I'm going to use some special ordering, as well as I'm just going to pretend I had a couple of these in stock. So I'm going to oversell them. And then I'm going to queue 2 special orders up. So this customer, we can deliver to these 2 freezers, yet we're going to have to put on order these 2 built-in, I think they're refrigerators. And in this case, I'm also going to use a ship to, and this is something we're going to review more in the workshop, whereas this construction company is building or renovating a home for B here. So I'm going to set that as my ship to.
I caught your snarky name in there too.
So the situation here is that some of this we can deliver right now and some we can deliver later. One way, and it's quite a simple way, to split this into 2 invoices so that you can deliver the goods now and take payment or put it on account, and then wait for the 2 special orders, is called a block and move. And though there's a few settings that determine exactly how the block and move works, It's an excellent tool for reasons of simplicity, and it's kind of like cut and paste. So first I'm just going to demonstrate it, and then we'll have a quick discussion about what its benefits and its limitations are, because each of these approaches has both benefits and limitations. And we'll poll you guys to see who uses it and who doesn't like it. So I'm going to hit Alt-B on my keyboard for these two freezers, Alt-B. Then if I wish to split this out so I can invoice for the product that I've delivered, I would go Alt-M, and it opens this dialog box, which allows me to move these two products to a new invoice or existing invoice. If it's not a product with just one quantity, you can also select the quantity here. I'm going to move both of them to a new invoice.
Now, Scott, is there a menu path that you could take as well? You gave the keyboard,
I did.
Shortcuts,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, good question, Kyle. So we'll go back to the first order. So here you can see my first order, but the two lines have moved. And I can also, with a line selected, I can go up to options, block and move, and I can block the items like this, or hit Alt-B, and I can move them. And as you'll see in the second part of the presentation, we can also move them to a layer, which we'll talk about next. Now, what we've achieved here is first we've done a work order with all 4 lines, and then I've blocked and moved the 2 lines that we had in stock, these 2 freezers, to the next invoice. And what you'll notice is that the invoice number, if you look up top here, is the same invoice number, but with an A on the end. So this creates a tie between the 2 invoices. I've also, and they're also both set to the same customer. So the thing is, when you block and move, I'm going to want to perhaps check certain details. So it's still going to have the same customer here, and I still have the same ship to there. So as long as all that's the case, that it is going to the same address, then we're in a good place. Now, this gives me 2 separate invoices. And now if I have multiple, if I'm using the delivery calendar, which is another topic I'm not going to go in detail on right now, it allows me to set a delivery for this product for my delivery calendar while I'm waiting on the other product that's still on order. So allowing me to track both deliveries separately. So when the other product shows up, I can ship it. And to bill the customer either by putting that on account, which is what I'll do now. Oh, these were oversold, right? Either by putting that on account or taking a payment. And a block and move does work slightly differently when there's a payment involved. So since we had a question there, I'm going to quickly do another example with the payment involved. So
Yeah, and the whole purpose of splitting that up is 1 for inventory tracking, and then 2, the other advantage is for faster revenue recognition, right, Scott?
that's correct. So for the inventory tracking side, as soon as you flip a work order to an accounts receivable invoice, here I'm going to oversell 1, special order 1. That's when the stock is removed. So when the W flips to an A, that's when the stock is fully out of stock and all the revenue is recognized, like Kyle's saying. So splitting it lets you recognize the revenue for the stuff that the customers received, but still keep everything else in a workflow, work order state until we wait for our special orders to arrive. Now, what if they've put a deposit down or paid in full? I'm going to say here, for the simplicity of math, that this customer gave me a check for $2,000 before I split the order. And then I'm going to deliver the pieces I can deliver by blocking them and Alt-M, moving them to a new invoice. When I do this, when I click here, another dialog box is going to populate asking me, well, did you want to leave all that payment on the first order, or would you like to move some of it to the next order? And you can see it's suggesting that I move the amount equal to the product, but I don't have to stick with that. I could also move an amount that I type in, and I can choose to move the payment to the new invoice or leave it on the existing invoice. So now I've got my two invoices again. Let's maybe make them a bit more separate. Here's the here's the first invoice. So we'll just make that full screen. It still retains some of the payment and some balance. And here's the second in the string of invoices in this example, which we move some payment to, and it has a balance. So this lets you could either have moved the entire amount for this invoice with it so that it looks fully paid, or you can split it up any way you see fit. And as Kyle's mentioning, when we flip this to an accounts receivable, that puts the remaining balance on account for this customer, or it would be fully, if it wasn't an account customer, we could fully pay that. Now the block and move is a great tool, but it does have some limitations. So the advantages is it's usually quick and easy. You just Alt-B, Alt-M, move the product that you can ship now or that they can pick up now and bill them for that, whether that be upfront or on account. You can move a payment with it, which is also very nice. And you can recognize the revenue for the product you've shipped right away, which is very important when there's a long wait time on the other part of the order. The disadvantage is it does split it into two work orders or invoices, which with some customers, could be with contractors, for example, that can be confusing on their statement. And there's no real button to hit to print both invoices. They are separate transactions for accounting and stock control purposes, which is an advantage and disadvantage. There's other little things too if you're using features like sell-through allowances or promotional features that rely on dates. The blocked product that goes to the new invoice will take today's date, not the original order date, which can have effects on commission and things like that. So you need to test that and make sure it's going to work for your environment. We're going to keep moving here, although there is more you can learn about block and move. Next, we're going to talk about layers. Now, this is a way to keep your entire transaction on one work order and one invoice. And you can use this for splitting deliveries or splitting up what's delivered and what's not, but you can also use it for other things. So I'll mention some as we go through. In this case, I'll just make a new one. So we're going to make a new sale, and we're going to stick with our same company. And we'll stick with our theme of refrigerators. And we'll do the same thing. We're going to oversell to, and we're going to special order to. So in this case, there's two products that the customer can take or I can deliver right now, and two that I cannot. what I'm going to do in this case, because say Devastator Construction likes it with everything for this job on one invoice. So we'll set our ship to, it's going to this property. And we want to keep it all together, but they want to help us keep track of what they've taken or we've delivered to the job site and what remains outstanding. It might be cosmetically on the printout, they'd like that. And layering is great because there's lots of printing options. So I'm going to go up to my layers button at the top here and click that. I'm going to create a new layer. And here's one way I've seen this done. I'm going to create a layer called shipped. I'm going to create a layer called on order. I'm actually going to create one more layer. I'm going to call that staged. So I've got it. It's ready for delivery or pickup, but it's still in my possession, or staged. And then I've got these 3 tabs on the bottom. Now you can use these tabs or layers for other purposes as well. For example, stages of construction. For example, I've also seen it used for completely different things, like bundling of products. I am now going to use our friendly block and move tool. To block and move these 2 special orders onto the on order tab. So what I did is I blocked them with Alt-B. Now I'm going to go up to options, block and move, and I'm going to move the blocks to a layer. Well, they're on order. So now I've got these 2 that are shipped. They aren't shipped as far as accounting goes. They aren't shipped as far as stock control goes, but they are still in the work order. I've got 2 products that are on order and nothing staged. Now let's order that product and see what happens as it arrives. So I'm going to use a handy tool here to create a PO of special orders right from my work order. And what I'm going to do is send those special orders off. Just in case special orders are new, I'll show you how this looks on a PO. So I've sent that off and the system knows exactly who those are for. And now I'm going to get out of my work order for a moment. And open that PO, but I'm just going to receive one of the 2. So I'm going to bring in this one ice maker and I'm going to want to set that aside for this customer. So when I receive it, either by doing a label or by printing my special order report, or sorry, I should say receiving report with my special order boxes here ticked, I'll be able to see where that should be. So this is for Jim Rumble. Now, if I go back and look at my sale, work order, I've got the product that's shipped. I have these 2 products on order, but one is now ready for delivery or pickup. So I can block that and move that. Sorry. Block and move that to the staged layer. So now if Devastator Construction phones in asking about this job site, I can say, well, we shipped you the refrigerators for the basement suite and the main kitchen. We're still waiting on the refrigerator for the man cave. And we do have your ice maker though, so you can come get that and at least the construction team can have some ice in their water. This approach doesn't have any accounting or stock control effect, which some people like. It does have printing options. The layers can print in different ways on your printouts. Each layer can have its own printing settings, giving you a wide variety of options. As we just have limited time in this webinar today, I'll show you one option. So here you can see, I'm not sure how well we can see that I've got subtotals of shipped, on order, and staged. And if let me zoom out, I can have the dollar amounts of those populated here, or I can choose not to do that. I can have just the subtotals with no parts underneath, or I can choose not to do that. I can design my form in a variety of ways using layers, making them useful not just for split deliveries or split orders like this, but for other purposes as well, like stages of construction, or you might have a variety of reasons in your business.
Yeah, it's great for like showing different ways of estimating too. So like if you had a whole house that you were estimating, you could break it up by room even.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. Yeah. So we could do lots of things with layers. The important thing to understand about layers is that although they are helping you keep track of what's been delivered and what's not delivered, they do not give you the ability to take some of this revenue ahead of time. You have to deliver everything on this work order for the system to recognize the revenue, and it's the same with the stock control. So they have a big limitation in that way. Some people still like them. So that's layers. Again, you got lots of different printing options to play with. You only have one invoice number. A lot of businesses that you're invoicing like that, to see that in their statement. It keeps the whole job together. You can do it by room or stage of construction, like Kyle mentioned. And it's got some limitations around the recognition of income, and you really just have one place to drop that payment, unlike with the block and move, where you can have the payment split up. Our next method of dealing with these partially shipped orders or multiple delivery situations is the B-type invoice. And this is really quite a good tool, but it also has some little quirks to it, or limitations, I should say. So we're going to start another sale. Oops. And this time I'll just special order everything. And then I'm going to use this tool here to quickly create a PO for all these special orders. And send that off to Whirlpool. Just going to exit the sale for the moment while I receive some of that product. So here's my PO. And again, I'm just going to partially receive this PO. We'll say 2 pieces came in and 2 are still on order. Just warning me that some of this didn't come in. Then if I go back to our work order, we have 4 of these appliances, 2 are available to be shipped or picked up, and 2 are not. But we want to record the revenue we can, but we also want to keep everything on one work order. So it's like we want the best of both worlds. We want the best of the block and move and the best of the layering all in one. Well, we can come pretty close. And instead of putting this to accounts receivable, which you can see it will not allow me to do, I can use a B-type invoice, which is an accounts receivable with back orders. So it needs to be an account customer to do this. And you'll see that when I do that, it's essentially, it's going to sort of layer it for me, but just with 2 layers. So we've got the non-shipped product. So those are the 2 special orders that I've not received. And at this date, the shipped product. It automatically moves any product with a filled quantity onto the shipped layer. That might sound fantastic, but it can be tricky if you actually have some of the products still staged but not shipped. That's its limitation. I might need to just quickly show you what I mean. So let's say we receive 1 more appliance. So one of these non-shipped items. So I'm just going to exit out of here and go back to our PO. And let's say I receive 1 more. So what you'll notice is it moved the product that I received to the shipped page without any interaction, which is great. But the fact of the matter is, just because I hit the receive button doesn't mean that that is actually delivered or that they have actually picked it up. But it has been put on the ship tab. So it works really great for some businesses, but it doesn't really provide you with a great tool for seeing what's staged. Neither does the block and move.
You know what situation that really is helpful and absolutely perfect for is drop shipped items. So if you get a receiving report that something was dropped off or a proof of delivery, you can go ahead and receive that item, and then it automatically goes to the correct spot.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, that's a good point, Kyle. So it allows you to track the flow, and it's automated, so you don't have to go back and do steps. It has a lot of really good benefits to it. Now, one thing to note is that it is splitting up the revenue for you. It's keeping track of these non-shipped items in a ledger for unearned revenue, which you have to be okay with on the accounting side. And then it's keeping track of these items as revenue. And then the whole thing will be tracked as revenue when it's completed, when it's all shipped. Now, I am curious, but here, let's just finish this. So it allows you to recognize revenue in a really seamless way. Drop shipping is a great point, Kyle, about how we can use this automation to kind of help us along. It keeps everything on one invoice. There's no blocking and moving. You don't have to know how to do that. The special order items that are received automatically go to the shipped tab, which, as long as, you know, that can be a little confusing. There's not as many printing options as the layering, but it still prints. And you just need to teach your staff how to use B instead of A little bit, which isn't that big a deal. Now, what I would be curious to know before we sort of wrap things up, if it's okay, is who uses B-type invoices? Okay, so we've got some people using those, but they seem to be kind of little known. And who uses block and move? And you might use block and move for various things. So okay, that's a bit more down the middle. And who uses layering? Layering seems to not get all of its fanfare. And that one's more down the middle. Pretty much bang on. We could layer you. So, okay, I know that's a lot for one meeting. There are 3 great tools here. Each one can fit a business differently, and I hope that this helps you choose the one that you want to use. And just a couple questions here I think make sense to address. Gerard's asking, I don't see B-type invoices in my system. It needs to be set up in your invoice tree, Gerard. And you can find good instructions in the Learning Academy on how to do this. Just in your search tag, put in B-type or block and move, and you're going to be able to find what you need. It's a pretty easy setup. So those are, there is pretty good content on all of those, and we're going to go into a bit more detail in the workshop next week. Kyle, do you have a few words you want to say?
Yeah, sure. So our next workshop is managing delivery, installation, and service. And then I think there was a little bonus content in there about warranty and return options as well. So that's that was added on to the agenda by Scott here. So that's good. It's a half-day workshop. And it's a paid workshop, so there is a cost to it, but I think that you'll get the value out of the price there. So that's going to be held on 5/16, and it's from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific time. That's an important part of that. Then if you want to go to the next slide there, we also have a bundle. So we already ran one of them, so the bundle has now been just discounted just a little bit. If you go to windwardsoftware.com events, there's a link to purchase the bundle. In fact, there's also a link to go ahead and purchase the workshop for next week as well. But yeah, bundling them up saves you quite a bit. And the recording is available for the one that already ran, so that's going to be also included in your bundle. All right, was there any other Q&A you wanted to address there?
Let me see here. There's one other question. Can you delete, thank you, Melinda, for your question. Can you delete a whole layer? For example, can I create option 1, option 2, option 3 for a customer and only keep the option that they want? I think you can only layer and unlayer, Melinda, and here's what I'd suggest for creating multiple quotes. What I'd suggest for creating multiple quotes is create the first quote. Let's, I think this might be my layered one. And you might name these in a variety of different ways, your layers. And get your base quote or your first quote done. And then I'd leave it as an estimate, actually. I don't think I can flip this to an estimate. Then
yeah, I think you had a payment on that one, was why?
Yeah, then I'd clone it. So I'd duplicate it and then make changes and present them with that and keep the copy. And then I'd clone it again and make changes and keep the copy so that you've got a string of estimates with layers on them. And yeah, I think for quoting, actually the layers, although they can help you divide up by room, for example, our keywords feature is also helpful for that. The estimates are something we're going to talk about in the final workshop of the second quarter. But the nice thing about estimates is that you can then have a separate file. So if they say to you, well, I thought we talked about this, you can say, well, we did on this estimate, but you chose that estimate, which can be quite handy when you're later on dealing with pricing and delivery and things like that. So thank you everyone for coming. I hope to see some of you at the workshop next week.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining today. There is a quick 30-second video right after this, so stick around for that. Sorry I cut you off there, Scott. Do you have any closing remarks there?
No, that's great. Thanks for coming, everybody.
All right, bye now.